My name is Jenna Ellenburg. I am in 10th grade at SCA, and this is a brief testimony on my life before and after Christ. Well, I was a pretty happy kid up until the 6th grade. My parents had really sheltered me from everything when I was in elementary school, but when I got to middle school, I began acting like the kids around me. Very vulgar language and just an inappropriate mindset. I didn't really think about what I was doing because this was all new to me and I was just trying to fit in. When people began cyberbullying me, I started to isolate myself from everyone. I kept all of my feelings locked up and I didn't trust anyone. And it's around that time that my depression started. Instead of talking to someone, I poured myself into music. My personality completely changed and I started to just hate myself. I hated the way I looked, behaved, and that became a major insecurity. Soon I was always locked up in my room in the dark, just listening to music. And after a while I began feeling hopeless. I started cutting myself because I felt like there was no way out. I was in so much pain and I was so alone. I had no one to go to about any of this, and I just made myself believe that the physical pain was easier to deal with than the emotional pain that I was in, and how I felt emotionally was indescribable. And I just remember every day, all I could think about was just killing myself. I just always wanted to die. I began cutting myself more and it became an addiction. I held off on actually killing myself though, because I knew if I died I would go to hell, and that was my biggest fear. I wasn't cutting for attention, which is what most people think cutting is for. That is not even remotely accurate. I was so ashamed of what I was doing, and I was so scared that someone was going to find out. It's not right to tell someone that what they're doing is just begging for attention, because people don't cut for attention. Those who don't know what it's like to feel this way, people who have never been depressed will never know the struggle. People say that just think happy thoughts, but that's like being stuck in the middle of the ocean and saying just think of dry land. And I struggled with depression and self-harm up until this past summer. My parents found the 50+ scars on my arms, and they sent me to counseling. It did help, but I was still depressed because I didn't know the Lord and I wasn't wanting to change. So in June I went to a camp called Uplands with the last church I attended, and the speaker talked about how you need to be reborn. He called people up to the stage like every pastor does at the end of every sermon, but what was different about this one was for the first time in about 5 years, after all the callings and all the opportune moments I had to give my life to Jesus, I went up to the stage, kneeled, and I prayed, and I gave my life to God. And in that moment I just felt all the pain and suffering that I struggled with for so many years lift off my shoulders, and I cried for a good 30 minutes. And then all the kids that were saved that night lined up in front of the stage, and the speaker had everyone in the camp come and hug and welcome us into the family of the Lord. It was one of the happiest nights of my life, and it's something that I will never forget. I used to feel anger, loneliness, hopelessness, and hate, but in the past 7 months, Jesus has filled me with joy. He has showed me I am never alone. I'm hopeful, and I love people and just being around them, and I have had a calling to work with people. So I plan to go into missions after I graduate so I can share the hope that I now have with others.